What's up, Browns fans? Spencer German here with you in Berea, where the Browns wrapped up practice on Friday. Anthony Moeglin back at home, and we're here with our weekly episode of the podcast here for Cleveland Browns Roundtable. Make sure you hit subscribe if you haven't done so already at the YouTube channel here. Head on over to roundtable.io/sports/NFL/Browns. Get involved in the community section. Join the channel first, or join the site first of all, but also jump in the community section. We're constantly posting stuff there, just kind of on the fly that pops up on our radar. A lot of stuff coming down the pike from last night in the Thursday Night Football game, which obviously Megs and I will talk about here. But also you can read our premium content where I have a story that just went up a little bit ago about Myles' comments on Joe Flacco's performance. So a lot of good stuff going up over there. Make sure you check it out, and we appreciate you hanging out with us. You know, Megs, it's funny. We normally try to do these episodes of the podcast like midweek, but it actually worked out that we waited till Friday to do this one because there's an elephant in the room that we got to talk about in terms of what played out on Thursday Night Football between the Steelers and the Bengals, and so this gives us the space to do it.
Anything happened last night? Like I was watching baseball. What happened?
Oh man, it's actually kind of funny. One of the Browns coaches jokingly left the media room today and was like, was everybody watching Netflix last night? Like he kind of made that same joke. So there you go.
I had the baseball games on. I will, I'll defer to you. I don't even know what happened. What happened last night?
Well, the Browns players certainly saw what happened last night. Myles Garrett certainly saw what happened last night, but Joe Flacco put on an absolute show. Honestly, it just overall, that was one of the best Thursday night games of the season, maybe ever. Like Thursday night games for a while were just like garbage because they put terrible teams on there. Now they've gotten better about the matchups, but that was one of the best Thursday night games I think I've ever watched. And Joe Flacco, former Cleveland Browns quarterback, now Bengals quarterback as of a little over a week ago, lit it up against the Pittsburgh Steelers. 31 of 47, I think he was, 342 yards and 3 touchdowns, if I've now remembered the stats correctly. Yeah, I just love Joe Flacco that much. And listen, I think the timing of this is even worse. From a number of angles. The fact that they traded him just last week, the fact that he started for you for 4 weeks and it didn't work out, and then you pivoted to Dylan Gabriel really early in the season and that hasn't gone well. But also the fact that like he did this against the team that the Browns could only put 9 points on the board against 4 days prior. And so all of that added up to what I thought was going to be a pretty interesting day here in Berea just in general, because you had on the heels of that players certainly seeing it and having reactions to it and things. I don't know if there was anything like really, inflammatory or crazy said today. Kevin Stefanski said he was asleep, but, he was happy to see Joe have a good game, and he's basically focused on this week and what they got going on in their building, which is the classic Kevin Stefanski answer. You expect nothing less. I did think Myles had some interesting comments, which we'll get into, but yeah, man, like I don't know how else to chalk up last night other than believing that it does speak to just the problems here in Cleveland on a holistic level. And what I mean by that, Megs, isn't like I think two things can be true. It's okay that the Browns traded Joe Flacco and tried to get a pick for him when he probably wasn't going to play again this season here in Cleveland. I think we can agree upon that. It's not that I'm saying, buyer's remorse, they shouldn't have traded him. But I do think as you watch that game play out and you see what Joe's doing with a way better receiving core and an offensive line that's also not very good. Like the Browns might be like 31B and the Bengals might be 31A in terms of offensive line play this year. Like their offensive line is bad too. And he was doing what he did last night against the Steelers. It's hard not to look big picture and feel like this speaks to just the makeup of this team right now, how it's been assembled over the years, and the fact that they're missing a lot of things that prevented this thing from being more successful with Joe Flacco while he was here.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. And really what stands out to me, you like just looking at, because, right, I think it was fun for a little bit, and you were like, all right, Joe, relax. Like, at least I was like, all right, dude, chill out, man. Come on. We don't got to throw for, I don't need 350. Like 280 would have been cool, and as long as you get a win. But he goes for 340. And, what really stood out to me, and you and I were texting about it. And initially, I think we were far off in like where we were at. But I think everybody knows that he goes down there and it like fits it fit a little bit better for him where he could just kind of stand back there. And he went under center and play action, all this stuff. But when you're thrown to Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, like that changes.
They ran a zone read play with him, by the way. Did you see that?
Which was
read option play.
Dude.
They ran a read option play, and he ran for 15 yards.
So just, I'm not a football, I'm not a football expert. I'm not an NFL expert. I didn't play in the NFL. I think there's a real chance where he just kind of went freestyle on it because, like, first of all, you're in Zach Taylor, you need fired even after the win if you called a zone read for Joe Flacco. But also the best tweet that I saw last night, the best post that I saw is it was something along the lines of Joe Flacco's the best quarterback when he has no idea what the playbook is. And like, while funny, it's like kind of true because you think back to when he came in 2023, week 1 against the Rams, they lost, but like he showed some things. And like, okay, his first game as a Bengal, they lost to the Packers, but he showed some things. Like he showed a little fight, couple drives here, couple drives there. And you're like, oh, I got it. Then the second game, ours was against, I think it was the Jaguars was the second one because they came back home and he lights it up, right? Throws for a bunch of yards. They win. It's crazy. It's great. And that's what he does last night. It's like, there's an element to this where it's throw caution to the wind. I only know a certain number of plays. I probably just learned the snap count. I don't know the terminology, but screw it. I'm Joe Flacco. I see Jamar Chase just the same way I saw Amari Cooper 2 years ago, and now I see T. Higgins. Like, let's talk about it. Like 31 completions, 24 of them went to T. Higgins and Jamar Chase. Okay, the Browns don't have either of those guys. And out of the 342 yards, we're going quick math, 257 of them, 257 yards were to Jamar Chase and to T. Higgins. Like, okay, there's the difference, right? The Browns don't have 2 of the top 15. I'd say Jamar's in the top 8, top 5 receivers. T's probably top 15, top 20. Browns don't have that. And the bigger question, it gets to what your point is, does that change the way you try to build this roster the rest of the way? And if Andrew Berry gets the chance to, do you go heavy on getting some elite level talent? Because you've seen, if you have that, no one cares what the offensive line looks like as long as you're getting the ball out fast enough.
Well, off of that, I think the holes this team has at this point are obvious. I think that's something that was exposed last night for sure. But more so for me, it's about like how the Browns have gotten to where they are, right? Because like, listen, Joe Flacco does that last night. We know that, and here's the other thing, like maybe he didn't fit what they want to do on offense. I don't know. But we also saw 2 years ago that he seemed to fit pretty well with what the Browns wanted to do on offense. So much so that he balled out and took this team to the playoffs in 2023. So it's not that we have evidence that he works in Kevin Stefanski's offense. So that's where I say like there's a flaw in the way that this thing was built, and that's where all these conversations could kind of intertwine around the main topic and the main idea here of how safe this regime is moving forward with what they've put out on the field this year. And as much as people want it to be like a total indictment on Kevin Stefanski, I'm not even saying that. Like, are there flaws in Kevin Stefanski's offense? I think we're seeing some of that this year. Yes, I think there's a lack of creativity at times. Some of that probably is because he doesn't have the players to do certain things he wants to do with. I get that. And I do think he's been a little bit exposed to a degree this year, and there's reasons for that. But like the way this team was built is maybe the most egregious part of this. And so if these two guys are linked to each other, if they coexist together, if they're sort of tied at the hip and their contracts align, how do you decipher this? How do you move forward with this as you look back and understand like what they've left in their wake to this point to get to a point where you trade a 40-year-old quarterback that was awful in your system and he goes somewhere else and he's balling out again. Like there was clearly still some meat on that bone. There was still clearly some talent there, so much so that they thought he was going to give them the best chance to win at the beginning of the season. Like I don't know what the right answer is, but last night was an indictment as a whole, not individually on Kevin Stefanski or even individually on Andrew Berry. It was an indictment on this entire regime and how this thing has been assembled and how they got to this point. And you can look back and say, well, the Deshaun trade really set him back, or this thing here and this thing there, and this is why. Like, and you can point fingers at different people along the way of like, this is why this is the way it is, and it's this guy's fault here, and it's this guy's fault there. But as a whole, as an entire regime, the reason the organization is sitting where they are right now, 1-5 on the season off of a 3-14 year last year, with plenty more losses probably coming down the pike here this year, maybe even on Sunday, which we'll get to. They all had a hand in this. And so if this continues to go badly, if you finish 3-14 again or worse, I don't know how you just run it back with everybody and act like it's all good and everything's fine, because The way this has been built and the way things are going on the field, it's a disaster right now. It is.
Well, I would push back just a little. I mean, yes, there's a lot of truth to what you said there, and it certainly is not, there's two people at fault in this whole thing, which I totally agree with. But I think last night showed, have an elite receiver, like have two elite receivers. Like that's what the Browns don't have. They don't have elite receiving core. And, and I think back to, like I said, like at the start of, when Joe came the first time, Amari certainly wasn't a top 5 receiver, but he was damn good enough to at least command respect. And at that point, it was like, all right, Joe, if you can get it out to him, great. And then that opens up everything else. And you saw the fruits of that. Now what you're seeing with this team is that they have nobody to their receiving core is like, I wish you could rank them worse than 32 or worse than 31 because like they're so bad and there's nothing, it limits the creativity that you can have on offense, which you talked about. It further emphasizes the fact that everybody has to do their job. All 11 guys have to do their job for a play to be successful. And when your offensive line's struggling and your receivers stink, it makes it really hard to move the football and do all those things. You saw last night, like, hey, there was twice that TJ Watt was an inch away from Joe Flacco's hands that he made a 10-plus yard completion. One went for a touchdown to T. Higgins because guess what? They won on the outside because they were better than their guy. And it didn't matter that their right tackle got beat like a drum. So it's like, okay, yes, there's flaws to it, but also too, like, he got traded to a team that has one of the best receivers in football, and it showed last night. And, one of the things that I thought was such a juxtaposition between what we saw on Thursday and what everybody watched on Sunday when the Browns were playing the Steelers is that there was just zero respect and zero fear that the Browns were going to go deep at all, like deep as in 10 plus yards. Like they didn't care. Juan Thornhill was playing at 8 yards, on Sunday. Last night they were in quarters coverages. Jalen Ramsey got exposed. Darius Slay got exposed. And it was like, hey, one of the good things that the Bengals were able to do were they were able to pick on matchups. And that's what good NFL teams do. And that's what good NFL coaches do. Browns don't have that luxury because of what you said, the way this offensive roster is built. They don't have the ability to do that. So, yes, there's some to it. I don't totally agree with you on that, but I agree with a lot of what you said.
But I guess my question, Megs, is like, okay, so yeah, they don't have these elite receivers, but like, whose fault is that? And that's where because I understand what you're saying, like, but this is the problem that I have is when we go and redo this revisionist history thing, where we sit there and say, well, hey, if they had those first round picks in 2022 and 2023, maybe they draft one of those receivers. And if they had this and they had that, maybe this works out. Or if they had traded this guy and not this guy, like we can do that for every team across the NFL and come up with what if scenarios. At the end of the day, this is a results-based business. And we can sit there and say like, well, the Deshaun thing set him back and do all. Yeah. Well, who made those decisions? Like, these people made these decisions. The reason the team is where they're at, the reason they were 3-14 last year, the reason they don't have elite receivers and Joe Flacco can't have success here, and the reason that the offense stinks every single week and is averaging 13.6 yards or points per game is because all those series of events led them to here. And so at some point, like enough is, I'm not saying fire everybody right now, but I'm just saying like at some point, that bill comes due, and we can't just keep pointing the fingers and saying like, well, hey, let's give them more time to like find that right receiver. Like at some point you've had your chance and it isn't working. And that's where I'm at with it. That's what I think last night was about for me was I'm sitting there watching this thing and it's like, how did the Browns get here where Joe Flacco at 40 years old is going and slinging it in Cincinnati 1 week into knowing their playbook, and here in Cleveland, they can't even line up correctly at the line of scrimmage. Like it's a disaster right now. That's why I said use the word disaster. I understand what you're saying. Like, yes, you can go back and say, well, they don't have this and they don't have that, and Flacco would have had more success in these scenarios. But at the end of the day, like it's a results-based business. That's life in the NFL. And yeah, they swung big. They took their shot. They gambled. They tried to go get Deshaun Watson. They thought that was good. I had somebody say that to me. They were like, well, hey, if the Deshaun thing works out, we're not even having this conversation. But it didn't. It didn't work out. And the team is now 1-5 on the heels of 3-14. And so you have to start answering some of these questions. You have to start figuring out what the future holds for this team. Because I'm going to be honest with you, Megs. Maybe these guys come back next year. Maybe that's still the prevailing thought in the building, and Jimmy Haslam wants to give them another shot to dig themselves out of it. Do you think 2026 is going to be much better? They got to rebuild the entire offensive line. Yeah, they might go draft like a Carnell Tate, and maybe that's at least a top flight receiver you have. Okay, cool. They're They might draft another rookie quarterback, or they might decide that Dylan or Shador is the guy and run it back with them. Do we think that they're all of a sudden just going to be this like playoff contending team next year? Like, I think it's going to be another growing pains type year next year. And so all this was just to get to 2027 and give these guys 8 years to figure it out. Like, the team's gotten progressively worse since they've been here. And so that's what I think last night exposed for me.
That's not true. That's not true. They gotten progressively worse since they were in the playoffs 2 years ago. Like, the
roster has gotten progressively worse since they've been here. Think about it, Megs. The guys that they made the playoffs with in 20, the guys that were still at the forefront of what they made the playoffs with in 2023 were all guys drafted before this regime got here.
Yeah,
I'm just saying.
There's still like the key pieces. Like, I agree with you. Like, the key piece, like
Myles.
You watch Myles, David, Joel, Wyatt, even to some extent. Wyatt was, the clip.
He was traded for, but yeah,
he was traded for. But like the clip in 2020 where it was like, same old Browns, right? When Nick Chubb was running it up and down Pittsburgh's throat. Those are some of the same guys that you've seen, and that you're seeing still to this day. And like, you look at the good franchises in the NFL, I think of the Chiefs, where they're now on iteration 2 of Patrick Mahomes' career, and they've like had to reinvented their offense, right, with younger guys, and they made hard decisions to get rid of key pieces, and they've kind of replenished a lot of that with some of the young guys, so like that part I do agree with. But like, there was a lot of that last night too that I was seeing, like, oh my God, it's been the worst ever, in these past 6 years or whatever it's been. And that part's just patently false. But I hear what you're saying, where it's like it's gone downhill.
Yeah.
The past, year or so, for sure.
Yeah. Well, and look, I keep talking about the roster and the construction and how the roster's gotten worse. That ultimately does fall on Andrew Berry's desk. I just think, like, if all they've done is talked about how these two guys are tied together. And so I do wonder if you're going to fire one at some point this season or after the season, I think it almost means you have to clean house and fire both. But we'll see if we get there. Honestly, Megs, we could be there as soon as Sunday. Do you feel going into this game that it is a must-win for the likes of Kevin Stefanski and company if they're going to keep things, if they're going to get the nose up on this plane and sort of keep things status quo and calm down the masses a little bit here?
Yeah, I mean, there's no question about it. They have to. Like, this should feel – the sense of urgency inside that building and the sense of urgency on Sunday should be at an all-time high. Like, they lose this game, like, talk about everything you and I have talked about. You lose the locker room, all the veterans start, you start hearing more and more bad stuff. I'm sure it would just come out. Like, I'm sure it would be, the breaking of a dam if they lose on Sunday, because like in general, you need to beat teams you're supposed to beat. But when you're a bad football team and you're trying to just scratch and claw for wins, like, these games become so much more important, because like if this schedule falls differently for Cleveland, maybe you're looking at a 3-3 team and you've already got some of those bad teams out, some of the good teams out of the way, but you just went all good teams to start the year. And now we knew this was going to happen. You're 1-5. The pressure is going to be turned all the way up, and you got to go out and you got to win football games. And that is the really, really challenging part that the Browns are going to face. And for sure, 100% Sunday is a must win for if you're Kevin Stefanski, if you want to keep your job, absolutely.
Yeah, listen, I think it's funny because you say you got to beat the teams you can beat, or you should beat. And I honestly wonder if like Miami's talking the same way in their locker room, right? Like, yeah, I'm sure they're. Like, I guarantee you they're watching the tape and they're like, we should beat this Browns team.
Yes, no doubt. They're like, this is the Spider-Man meme of like, it's Mike McDaniel and Kevin Stefanski. Like, they're looking at each other like, hey dude. Like that's what this is on Sunday.
I think you're right. And that's what makes this game interesting, because I kind of called it earlier in the week, like an important, unimportant game, because to everybody else outside the NFL, this game, or around the NFL, every other fan base, like, this game means absolutely nothing to them.
There's going to be two cities watching, not even states, cities watching this game.
But it's important because, yeah, like, whoever loses,
already at the beach, dude. They've already
whoever loses, like, that coach is squarely on the hot seat. So then that means like shifting things in the NFL and guys becoming available and changing of the guard in certain places and all those different conversations. So it's important, unimportant game in that way. I'm gonna be honest, like, I began the week thinking that if the Browns were to lose on Sunday, they wouldn't fire Kevin Stefanski like the next day or anything. I don't think it would be that dire. I think the opposite can be said for the Dolphins. Like Mike McDaniel has been on the hot seat since the season started. I actually think his odds might have been higher than even Brian Callahan's to be the first coach fired this year, because there was already turmoil with that team going into the season. Mm-hmm. And clearly that didn't happen. Brian Callahan got fired first. The Dolphins have kind of kept it together here. But that team's been unraveling. And then last week you had what Tua said, and then he had to apologize for it. So, like, that's either going to unify them and they're going to rally around it, or it's the signs of implosion and they're going to put up a real dud on Sunday and lose. And then I think Mike McDaniel gets fired on Monday. I don't know that I felt that way about Kevin Stefanski, but I'm going to be honest, man. Like, that's standing here today, and not to completely give away our predictions, which will drop over at roundtable.io/sports/NFL/Browns on Saturday morning, and we'll talk about it on pregame. I am leaning that I think the Browns win this game, but the way this organization operates over the years, like the things that we've seen, would I be surprised if they lose and then they fire Kevin Stefanski on Monday? Absolutely not, because nothing's off the table at that point. And if you lose to that team, I think it's a real testament to, we heard Joel yesterday and even Bubba Ventrone trying to sort of show this united front. They talked about how they're a really together team. Joel talked about how it doesn't feel like other times where things have kind of split. And he talked about how much he loves football and playing for the Browns and how he tries to be the same guy every day. And it was, it's good messaging. It's what you want to hear. But if you lose that game on Sunday, I think that probably speaks more to what's going on inside that building and how guys are feeling and where things are really at. And I've always said, like, the biggest kiss of death for a coach is if you lose a locker room. I think you pretty much tell everybody you lost the locker room if you lose to this Dolphins team on Sunday.
Yeah, I think you're spot on. And we knew it was going to get loud if it didn't go right early on. And, like, I'm going to continue to bang this drum because you did play four and a half Super Bowl contenders in the first 6 weeks.
Who's the half? The Vikings?
The half is the Ravens. Because,
the Ravens. Okay.
Because I gave it to because they were Super Bowl contenders when we played them with Lamar, and then they were like, we're going to lose everything, and then he's going to come back just in time to play us again. So, like, that's cool. But you played like the top tier of the NFL. And the worst team of that bunch was Joe Burrow's Bengals. Like, and so you do that, and it obviously is loud. It hasn't gone well, but it's going to get super loud here, and it is loud already. And that's for me why you have to win this football game on Sunday. You just have to do it.
Well, and Myles, he voiced his frustration after the game on Sunday. I know people get sensitive about Myles, and I get it. Like, he signed on. No, well, here's my thing, Megs. Like, Myles, yes, he signed up for this. Like, he signed the contract, he got paid, he doesn't really hit. And I think people sort of look at it and say, like, well, you don't have a right to complain anymore. But it's like, no. First of all, if you don't have sympathy for Myles anymore because he decided to stick around, I get that part of it. Like, if you're not going to be like, well, I don't feel bad for you, Myles, because you decided to stay, you got your money, fine, okay. But at the same time, what I appreciate about Myles is when you don't get a lot of emotion from Kevin Stefanski, and you do get that emotion from Myles. So when Myles talks and when Myles says things about being frustrated, I take that, and maybe I'm completely wrong, but I take that as, he's telling you how things kind of are in the locker room. I don't think he's given the indication, and he talked obviously on Friday as well today about the Joe Flacco thing and tried to sort of downplay, like, maybe our offense just wasn't the right fit for what we're trying. He wasn't the right fit for what we're trying to do. He said he looked like Joe, though, and I thought the one interesting line was he was basically asked, like, do you feel badly that you couldn't get more to Joe here? And he basically said, that ain't my problem. It ain't got nothing to do with me, which I think is his way of saying, like, again, it's on you, offense, to kind of get us going here. I can only do what I can do. But I appreciate that perspective from Myles, because I think Myles gives you the emotional side of it, and he actually kind of provides a microscope into how the locker room is really feeling about things. And I do think there's guys, at least on his side of the ball, that are very frustrated with the way things have gone and the fact that the offense can't kind of hold up their end of the bargain.
And they should be. Like, that's also the thing too. Just because he signed on the dotted line doesn't mean he wants to lose. Like, I have a couple buddies who get like all worked up about this. I'm like, guys, what are you actually saying? You're saying that the best player on your team, because he signed for a lot of money, isn't allowed to be frustrated about the offense? Like, that doesn't make any sense. The Browns have the best defense in the NFL, should have the best defense in the NFL. This should be a winning football team. This should be a team that's competing for the playoffs. guess what? I want my best player in the world to put pressure on the front office to get it freaking right.
Yeah.
And I want him to put pressure on the offense to get it right. I've been in that position, not at the NFL level, at the Division III level, when I was sucking and costing a nationally ranked best defense in the country.
You never sucked, Megs. Come on.
Dude, no. Oh, my God. Yeah, clip that shit to all my boys, and you'll get a lot of responses there. But that's the thing is, like, I want my best player to do all those things. Like, I don't understand when people – like, there's been a lot of barking radio heads who are like, no, Myles, sit down and shut up. Like, what are you talking – what does that even mean? It doesn't mean – and it means not – I have no idea what that even means. And it's like, I want my best player to be trying to hold the team accountable. And guess what? Trying to win football games. That's what we're all here to do, is to watch this team win football games.
I don't subscribe to that. I very much appreciate that Myles can be candid and, give his thoughts on things and isn't afraid to speak his mind, because we don't get that a lot from this organization in this era under Kevin Stefanski. And so I think Myles kind of knows, like, in some ways he's above – I don't want to say above the team. That's not a good way to put it. That's like a poor way to put that. But I think Myles knows, like, when he speaks, it matters, and he does kind of provide a voice for the team. And so he says things sort of like LeBron strategically, right? Like, he knows what he's doing when he's up there and he's saying the things that he's saying. I think he tried to be measured about that on Friday, but I also think it can't be denied. Like, it's undeniable that the frustrations are there. He said it on Sunday, and I think he alluded to that again on Friday. So I don't know.
He also made a comment today that I really liked. He's like, because somebody asked him, I don't know who it was, but someone asked him about just the fans being frustrated. And he's like, I get it, but no one's more frustrated than we are. Like, we put the pads on. We want to win football. Like, they can be. And he's like, yeah, they should be frustrated. Guess what? We're frustrated too. We want to win.
I think that was one of those quotes too, where people were like, "Shut up, Myles," and I was like, "No, like that makes total sense to me." They're the ones lining up out there, and to me, I think fans should want their best players frustrated that they're losing. Like that, do you not want somebody who cares? That's part of the complaints with Kevin Stefanski, is like he doesn't sometimes seem like he cares enough. Myles at least cares, and he makes that known, and so I think that's important and valuable. But let's real quick here before we get out of here. I do want to look ahead to Sunday, because we've talked about it being a must-win game. We talked about sort of the vibes around it and everything that kind of comes with this one. And I've already said, like, I haven't given you guys my prediction yet, but I do think the Browns are in a good position to win this game on Sunday. Now, what's interesting is the weather is going to be a factor on Sunday.
Is this like a hurricane?
Yeah, I mean, I've never heard of a hurricane on Lake Erie, but apparently that's what's coming through on Sunday. I think I saw like 30 to 40 mile per hour winds, 90% chance of.
It's 60
what is it up to now?
Mile an hour wind.
Okay.
100%.
Weather.com, they bopped me, I guess, on that one.
There's a hurricane brewing in Lake Erie right now.
I mean, Megs, listen. On the surface, you see that forecast and you're like, hey, okay. Joel's talking about how he likes playing in some slop, and this is a great opportunity to run the football with Quinshon Judkins, and that's the strength of this the one strength we can find in this offense, and they didn't do that enough last week. Miami's given up like 160 yards per game on the ground to opponents. So, yeah, it should set the stage for that. But listen, when it's that windy, when it's that wet outside on a football field, like, I think it's kind of like an all bets are off type thing, because both teams have to play in that. You have to be able to get your footing. So as much as I feel like the Browns should win this game, and the Browns probably will win this game, despite how bad things might be right now, that rain is like a complete wild card for me that I don't really know how to account for it, because I think the Browns are going to win. But if the rain slops things up and screws up the game plans, and you got fumbles all over the place, and guys can't get in the end zone because they slip or something like that, I would not be surprised to see anything. And that's why it's like, this kind of is just like a survive and advance type game. Like, everybody knows what's at stake. You just got to find a way to come up with a win in the rain. And, even if it's not your best game plan or whatever, so be it, because this one matters. But if you like, I don't even know if, like, running the football is probably the game plan, but I don't even know if, like, we can guarantee that that's 100% going to work as much as much as we all kind of anticipate it will, because it's going to be so screwed up outside.
What would really suck, Germ? Would be like the worst thing ever is if the game was played in a dome. That would be horrible. Like, that would suck so bad. I would hate it. I would hate it if it was actually in a dome. That would actually be terrible, because this is what I've heard all year is that this is our home field advantage is the weather, Mother Nature jumping on our side.
How many times has that worked out for the Browns though too? Like the
none.
game. The game everybody points back to. Remember that Saints game in December was it 2022? And everyone was like, "Oh, home field advantage. We're in the cold." I'm like, guys, you realize like these players are from like the South and California. Like they didn't grow up playing in this. They don't want to play in this either. Like, what are we talking about? And then they lost to a dome team.
Yeah, bingo. It goes to exactly what you just said, though. It's like sometimes the weather gets so bad that it throw caution to the wind because you can't predict it. And it literally what you just said just connected all of the dome conversation. I was trying to be facetious with it, but like you make a great point of like it's going to be so bad on Sunday, or it has the potential at least to be so bad on Sunday that, great. The Browns are a good run team. Awesome. Yeah. It's really cool if you're a good run team and your left tackle can't stay on his feet because he's slipping and sliding and your quarterback can't throw it because it's 60-mile-an-hour winds. It's like, okay, throw it all out the window. Like this could be a really if the storm that's supposed to hits, I think it could play it will play a major role in this game. Yeah. And it could be one of those like ugly, nasty games that you're just like, ugh, what did I just watch at 4:00 on Sunday afternoon?
It's funny. I talked to Andre Schmidt in the locker room this week, and he actually said that he kind of prefers having some of the element. Like he doesn't want like rain and stuff. No. He said that sometimes having the wind where it can sort of push your ball a little bit more, like you can sort of play into some of those things. He didn't say he wants like a 60-mile-per-hour crosswind, but he said guys always make fun of me because I played in the dome at Syracuse, and they're like, "Oh, you don't know how to kick in this stuff." But he was like, I honestly kind of prefer having a little bit of like that wind to help you out if you sort of pull one a little bit or whatever. So I don't think he made it clear he doesn't want to play in what's forecasted for Sunday necessarily, but that he's not like anti-weather because he kicked in a dome. So I want to be clear on that.
I promise we're not going to come back and rewatch this clip on Sunday afternoon when he misses a 40-yard
honestly, Andre Schmidt is the least of this team's problems right now. All that stuff from week one seems like eons ago. Seems like eons ago that was the topic of conversation. So, all right, Megs, let's get out of here. We appreciate you guys hanging out with us. I want to remind you, we'll have our official predictions in a written form. Go up Saturday morning, again, at the website there, scrolling at the bottom if you're watching, roundtable.io/sports/NFL/Browns. So we'll give you our official predictions. We'll talk about them again Sunday morning. I got some other fun stuff planned, I think, for our pregame show that I want to do, Megs, too. So I'll share that with you. We'll talk about it a little bit. And then we'll obviously join you post-game as well to talk about whatever happens. I might have to do the post-game from inside. I might have to do the pregame from inside.
No, I need you out in the elements.
If it's 60-mile-per-hour winds, my phone is going to blow over. Like, you're going to be looking at my feet. You're not going to see me.
We've seen you get hit with sprinklers before.
That's true.
We need you on the 50-yard line and with Mother Nature in the background because that is Cleveland football, Spencer. That's if you can't.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. Maybe I'll be on the concourse. I'll have to find and scout out my spot. But so join us pregame, join us postgame, no matter where I'm standing at the stadium. But we'll certainly have reactions to it, to everything for you. As always, please subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already here with the Cleveland Browns Roundtable. And head over to the website again. I'll give it to you one more time, roundtable.io/sports/NFL/Browns. And if you haven't joined yet, please join. Talk in our community space. We love the interactions there, especially on game day. And read any of our written content up there as well. For Anthony Moeglin, I'm Spencer German. We'll talk to you guys on Sunday. But until then, keep on following along with all things Cleveland Browns with the Cleveland Browns Roundtable.